God Says, I Never Left You, Emotional Jesus Story, Part 1. It was a cold, rainy night. David walked alone through the empty streets, his head lowered and his heart completely broken. Just a few weeks earlier, he had lost his job. Bills were piling up, his family had turned against him, and every prayer he whispered seemed to disappear into silence. For the first time in his life, he wondered if God had forgotten him. Standing beneath a flickering streetlight, David looked up at the dark sky with tears streaming down his face. Jesus, if you are really with me, please give me a sign tonight. I can't keep going like this. The wind suddenly grew stronger. Leaves swirled around him, and an old piece of paper drifted across the road before landing gently at his feet. Curious, David picked it up. It was a torn page from a Bible. His eyes stopped on one verse. Fear not, for I am with you. Isaiah 41 verse 10. A strange peace filled his heart. He looked around. The street was completely empty. No footsteps. No voices. Only the sound of the rain. Then, deep inside his heart, he heard a calm and loving voice. My beloved child. I never left you. You only stopped believing that I was near. David froze. His hands began to shake. Tears rolled down his face as hope slowly returned to his broken heart. But he had no idea. This was only the beginning. The next morning, David opened his front door and found a plain white envelope lying on the doorstep. There was no stamp. No address. No name. Inside was a single handwritten message. Tomorrow, your life will change forever. Trust Jesus. His heart started racing. Who left this message? How did they know his name? And what would happen tomorrow? Little did David know that the next 24 hours would become the greatest test of his faith, and the biggest miracle of his entire life. To be continued. God Says, I Never Left You, Emotional Jesus Story, Part 2. David held the mysterious letter in his trembling hands for several minutes. Tomorrow, your life will change forever. Trust Jesus. He read the sentence again and again. Who could have written it? There was no signature. No address. No clue. He slipped the letter into his Bible and whispered, Jesus, if this is from you, help me understand. That night, David couldn't sleep. Questions filled his mind. Around 3 a.m., he finally drifted off. In his dream, he stood in a beautiful green valley bathed in golden light. Everything was peaceful. Then he saw a man dressed in a radiant white robe walking toward him. His face shone with compassion. Although no name was spoken, David instantly knew. It was Jesus. Jesus smiled and gently said, Do not let fear control your heart. I am already working on what you cannot see. David wanted to ask so many questions. But before he could speak, Jesus placed his hand on David's shoulder. Tomorrow, you will have a choice. Choose faith instead of fear. Suddenly, the dream faded. David woke up with tears in his eyes. For the first time in months, he felt hope. The next morning, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, is this David? Yes. My name is Michael. I found your resume online. Our company needs someone immediately. Can you come in for an interview today? David's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't applied there. He almost said no because he had no money for transportation. Then he remembered Jesus' words. Choose faith instead of fear. He borrowed enough money for a bus ticket and went. The interview went surprisingly well. The manager smiled and said, You have everything we're looking for. We'll contact you soon. Walking home, David felt thankful. But hours passed. No phone call. Evening came. Still nothing. Doubt slowly returned. Maybe I imagined everything. At that moment, heavy rain began to fall. God says, I never left you. Emotional Jesus Story, Part 3. David could hardly believe everything that had happened. The mysterious letter. The dream. The unexpected job. The elderly woman in the church. And now another message that had appeared inside his Bible. For the first time in years, David knelt beside his bed. With tears in his eyes, he prayed. Jesus, I don't understand everything, but I trust you. Wherever you lead me, I will follow. The room was silent. Yet deep within his heart, he felt a peace he had never experienced before. A week passed. David settled into his new job, but something felt different. He no longer rushed through life chasing success. Instead, every morning before leaving home, he opened his Bible and spent a few quiet moments with God. His co-workers noticed the change. The anxious, discouraged man they had first met had become calm, patient, and kind. One afternoon, a co-worker named Ethan approached him. David, he asked quietly, how do you stay so peaceful? Everyone here is stressed, but you always seem hopeful. David smiled. I don't always have answers, he said. I just know that Jesus never abandoned me, even when I thought he had. Ethan looked down. My daughter has been in the hospital for months, he whispered. I've stopped praying because I thought God wasn't listening. David gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Can I pray with you? For a moment, Ethan hesitated. Then he nodded. The two men bowed their heads together. David prayed with all his heart. Lord Jesus, you are the great shepherd. Please surround this family with your love, give them strength, and remind them that you are always near. When they finished praying, Ethan's eyes were filled with tears. No one has prayed for me in years, he said. 3 days later, Ethan rushed into David's office with excitement. You won't believe this. What happened? The doctors just told us my daughter's condition. God says, I never left you. Emotional Jesus Story, Part 5. The mysterious message stayed in David's mind for days. Keep sharing my love. Someone is about to hear my voice through your story. He couldn't stop thinking about it. Everywhere he went, he looked at people differently. The businessman rushing through the street. The elderly woman sitting alone in the park. The teenager hiding tears behind a smile. David wondered. Which one of them is the person Jesus is talking about? One rainy Friday evening, David boarded a nearly empty bus after work. He sat quietly near the back, reading his Bible. At the next stop, a young man climbed aboard. His clothes were soaked from the rain. His face looked exhausted. He sat across from David, staring out the window without saying a word. A few minutes later, David noticed something that made his heart race. The young man slowly pulled a folded letter from his pocket. His hands trembled. Then he whispered, Goodbye. David immediately felt a strong urge in his heart. Go talk to him. Fear filled his mind. What if he thinks I'm strange? But the gentle voice returned. Trust me. David stood up and walked over. Excuse me, he said softly. I don't know your name, but I believe Jesus wants you to know that you're not alone. The young man looked shocked. Tears instantly filled his eyes. How did you know? David sat beside him. The young man introduced himself as Daniel. Between sobs, Daniel confessed. I lost everything this year. My father passed away. I lost my job. My fiancé left me, and tonight I was planning to end my life. David's heart broke. He silently thanked Jesus for urging him to speak. David opened his Bible and turned to Psalm 34 verse 18. He read slowly. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Daniel began to cry uncontrollably. No one has spoken to me with kindness in months. David gently replied. Jesus.